than our locals. But this is the right thing to do. Sometimes, as leaders, we have a choice of doing the right thing or not doing something because it may be controversial. In 2011, I co-founded Citizens for Better Arizona, and with the support of the CWA, Arizona State Council, other unions, and political allies, recalled the author of SB 1070, Russell Pierce. Because enforcement-only policies like SB 1070 don't work. I believe we should always choose to do the right thing and work to educate our members why it's the right thing to do, even if it's controversial. Comprehensive immigration reform is about the economy. It's about worker rights, but more importantly, it's about human rights. No one should have to risk their lives or the lives of their families for simply wanting to provide a better life for their family. But with a broken immigration system, just as you heard from Daniel yesterday, that's exactly what's happening every day. We need a path to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented workers that are already here, but also a way for low-skilled workers, not just high-skilled workers, to come to the U.S. so they don't have to live in the shadows and be afraid of going to work because they may not get paid, or their employer may call to have them deported at the end of the day. And let's not forget about the dreamers who were brought here at no fault of their own by their parents. We should demand there is no waiting period for someone that has graduated from college or served in our military protecting the United States. Most of these kids have no memory of ever living in another country. Some grew up not even knowing they were U.S. citizens and only found out by applying for college. Brothers and sisters, let's not forget this country was built by immigrants. I'm asking you to support the resolution on immigration reform. Thank you.
For over 400 years, people have been immigrating to this country to escape religious persecution. They have been immigrating to escape the oppression of tyrannical governments. They have been immigrating to work, immigrating to build a new and better way of life for themselves and their families. We are predominantly a country of immigrants. Right now, there are more than 11 million undocumented citizens, 7 million of which are workers. Workers and their families who are being exploited by greedy companies and greedy employers. Greedy companies and greedy employers are subjecting them to unfair and archaic work rules. They are discriminating against them based on race, gender, and sexual orientation. These are the people that march with us hand in hand in the streets on various issues and political actions. They love this country, and they want to be Americans. They want to be Americans and live the American dream, just like everyone in this room. Does this sound familiar? Brothers and sisters, it should. At CWA, we believe in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. At CWA, we believe in the fair treatment and application of the work rules. At CWA, we believe in the equitable treatment of people. At CWA, we believe in human rights. At CWA, we do not discriminate based on race, gender, or sexual orientation. At CWA, we believe in helping those who cannot help themselves. At CWA, we believe in fighting for the American dream. The time is now to tell Washington to fix this problem through reformation of the laws. Lawmakers need to look in the mirror, realize and understand that they too are immigrants. Thank you.
Before us, there's a motion. There's a delegate at motions, Mike. Mike what? Delegate Smith.
Tom Smith, I
consult the committee about the friendly nature of it.
Yes, sir. I offer this amendment with utmost respect for the committee, the long hours of work you have done. for the delegates here, and out of the deepest sense of solidarity with the working class here in this country, in Canada, Puerto Rico, and across the world. I offer this amendment because I believe this language will be more consistent with the resolutions and the reports from the Committee on Equity we passed yesterday, and because as trade unionists, our job is to speak up for workers, the entire class of workers, regardless of their status or national origin. Further militarization of our border, done with no regard for human rights, will not help workers achieve justice. In Tennessee, we're deeply committed to movement building. I was very happy when I arrived and saw that picture up there that's actually from a rally in Tennessee. And with our movement building partners, I feel like with this added language, this resolution and the work we'll go home and do will bring us closer with immigrants' rights activists around the country and across the world. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. I'll go consult with the committee. I would point out to delegates, this is in the text, not the resolve, but I just asked the parliamentarian, and it is in order. We don't normally, you're not really voting on all the text that's here, but I think the ruling is it's in order. Okay, they're okay with it. So again, it's on line 21 in the text, not the resolve clause. And it would add secure, it's accepted by the committee. With that in mind,
with the language that was accepted as a friendly amendment after that.
is there a second? Is there a second? You can speak on your motion.
Thank you, committee, for putting together this resolution. It speaks volumes to the progress we've made. I just want to I think it's important that we make one more change to this resolution that accepts the reality. I live in Chula Vista. I live within sight of the border. I live right at the border. My local, we have members who can't afford to live in the United States and have to cross the border every day. They're U.S. citizens living in Mexico. And when I turn on the radio driving to work, it says border wait 2 hours. That's the average. They have to cross the border every single day to get to work and do it for 2 hours. At the border, the last 5 years that the Berlin Wall existed, more people died on the wall we built between us and Mexico than died at the Berlin Wall. I have to say that the idea of securing our borders by building a wall with human rights in mind is an oxymoron. It's like saying build the Berlin Wall with human rights in mind. You can't do it. What we need to, it doesn't do any of the things we want, and does a lot of things we don't want. It's not going to stop terrorists. There's never been a terrorist stopped at the border between Tijuana and San Diego. It doesn't stop immigration. People keep coming across the border. All it does is terrorize people who are coming here looking for an honest day's work. We all heard the moving story yesterday of the brother who crossed the border with his mom and almost died for lack of water. That's what this does. When we talk about securing our border, it doesn't do any of the things that it says it does. All it does is it terrorize people who come here looking for work. People die at this border. That's the code word for secure our borders. It ends up with working people suffering. Not only that, but when I ride my bike along the border, I see half the cars on the road are ICE cars. We're spending so much money on ICE cars that there's not enough teachers in my kids' schools. We're spending huge amounts of money. This is an industry now that's meant to terrorize working people that are trying to cross the border. It doesn't stop terrorism, it doesn't stop immigration, and it causes great harm. I really encourage all the delegates to agree to strike the words secure all nations' borders. This is we need to stop agreeing to concessions up front on this. You know, somebody else is going to put this in here, but we should not be standing up for what happens at our borders. Some right-winger is going to say, yeah, but we have to secure our borders, and somebody along the way is going to say, well, that's a concession we have to agree to get what we want. Well, let them do that. Don't make it part of our principles that we have terrorization at the border, where we're the ones causing the terror. Where people have to cross the border hoping that they'll find some cistern of water that some good Samaritan has left there, or not, and end up dying in the desert because we've militarized the border so much that they have no humane way to cross the border. Or that my members end up showing up late to work because the border wait is 2 hours long and they can't afford to live here because the pay is not good enough. The solution for immigration is not having trade agreements destroy the industry in Mexico so that people can have decent jobs in Mexico and they don't have to come here. People don't come here because they want to leave their country. They love their country. They come here because they're impoverished. This is the secure our borders is terrorizing people. It's not even a solution to what we know is the real solution. Real jobs in the U.S., real jobs in Mexico, and human rights for all of us. I hope that the delegates will support removing this as one of our principles. Let this be somebody else's principle, but it's not our principle. Securing our border this way by militarizing it with human rights is an oxymoron, and the sentence needs to go. Thank you so very much, delegates.
No one wishes to speak on that amendment, so that amendment is before you, not the resolution, the amendment. The amendment again would strike line 21, which now reads, secure all of our nation's borders, consistent with respect for human rights. So all those in favor of removing that line, please indicate by raising your hand. Down hands. Opposed? Great. I'll have to do it again. Yeah, I'd like everybody to sit down. It's too hard to judge here. I'm sorry about that. Please take your seats. To strike line 21, which now reads, consistent with respect for human rights. Which now reads, secure all of our nation's borders, consistent with respect for human rights. All those in favor of striking that line, please indicate by raising your hand. Down hands. Opposed? It's struck.
Brown, I'm from local 81201 in Lynn, Massachusetts. I represent manufacturing workers, that's GE workers. And yesterday, CWA took a stand on the TPP trade agreement and has been mobilizing, we've been mobilizing our members and pursuing alliances to combat it. It's critical that we understand the links between the destructive trade agreements and immigration reform. So whereas the immigration to the United States in recent decades has been driven by economic and trade policies that have impoverished countries of the global South and increased inequality and exploitation of workers in the U.S., I'd like to offer this amendment that an additional resolve that the CWA must be, I'm getting a little screwed up. Immigration reform must be combined with a renewed effort to revise international trade and investment agreements like the TPP to address the base causes of large-scale immigration. So when we as a manufacturing local...
Just 1 second, is that the actual language?
That's the language which I gave.
Okay, so the committee has that language. You can, while they're looking at it, you please speak on your...
On my reading? Okay. So when we bargain against GE, they have moved more work, they have more workers outside the U.S. than work here. They've moved them to low-wage countries, and it undermines workers here, making it harder to win better pension or hang on to our pensions, health care for members and our retirees and our wages, and they're making huge profits. So we have met GE workers from Mexico who tell us how NAFTA impoverished their country. It has pushed agricultural workers, peasants off the land, and they've been driven across the border for work and a way to support their families. The competition from the U.S. corn did that. It hurts U.S. workers when immigrants in our community are exploited. Like in the Lynn area, the Catella welders were denied $140,000 in wages. and when they complained about it to the ironworkers local, they were fired. So we must stand with immigrant workers and link their struggles and the fight against bad trade agreements that impoverish their countries to our work here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.